to UPress Play, a sports show produced by FEU Student Media. I'm Megan, and with me is Maddox and Morgan, and we are live streaming on OwlTV's YouTube as well as UPress Sports Instagram. So I was out last week, went on a 5-day cruise. It was kind of like a graduation trip almost. It was a lot of fun. It was my first cruise. Maddox and I were talking about this a little bit, and he hasn't been on one either. Unfortunately, on the last day, it was like all rainy and stuff, so.
But you said like the cruise you guys went on was like pretty cheap, like it was like 300, like a 50% discount.
Yeah, well, we were smart. We got it. We got it when they were having like all the Black Friday and like Christmas sale deals. So for the 5-day cruise, it was like.
So wait, you guys' schedule's back in like December?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I thought it was like a thing I scheduled like a month or two in advance.
No, we kind of had like talked about it a little bit, and then my dad for Christmas was like, yeah, you're gonna get your passport, and then my friends were like, okay, let's book the cruise. So it was definitely a lot of fun, and it was really interesting to see like different cultures and how they work. Like in the Dominican, it was so, I don't know if you guys know, but they like use mopeds, or not mopeds, but like scooters to get around.
I would fit in just perfectly.
Yeah, well, not like the type of scooter you got, like the bikes.
Oh, those are like European type ones.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But they like were just driving around the streets like crazy, and I'm like, it would be so stressful to be trying to drive a vehicle in this, but that's why they did the show last week. And how is everyone's weekend, and how have the past 2 weeks been?
The past 2 weeks have been good. Again, we're like in the last home stretch for regular classes. Today's actually the last week, so that's good. Just having to get prepared for final projects, final exams. I have a couple that are in person, most are online. Actually, I have like, I think one in person, the rest are online, so I'm going to be here until like probably the 29th. But yeah, the show the other day was that we did last week was also good. Very fun talking about sports, but kind of very different than like all three of us, like just two. It's kind of hard trying to keep a show going for about like an hour, with just like two people talking. Yeah, then I covered some sports over the weekend. One of the games with Morgan actually, which we will discuss a little bit later. But I mean, all in all, it was a good weekend.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a good weekend for me too. We're starting to pack, get ready to move out of the dorm into. Well, first off, we're going back home, and then after that, we're moving into our first out of campus apartment. So technically, first actual living situation without my parents' help. And yeah, last week of school, I don't really have a lot of. I don't actually think any of my classes are I need to go and take an exam. I don't think any of them are. So yeah, I'm excited for the last two, this show and then next week's show.
Yeah, so this is like the last official week of classes, and then it enters like our reading week and then finals. So this week and then next week's show is going to be our last two shows, which is kind of sad. Now I understand how like JD and Cameron felt last semester. I'm like, oh, this is like actually coming to an end, and it's definitely like for you. I remember in your shoes like a year ago, and like getting my first apartment and moving into it. It's such an exciting feeling, because like on-campus living does not compare to having your own place. Where did you guys find one?
We didn't find one yet, so we're still looking, because we can't move in until late August because our roommate is going back to New Jersey, and I'm moving out with my girlfriend. Me and my girlfriend can't pay for like an apartment meant for 3 people by ourselves, obviously. So we have to wait, and we have to find a place in the middle of the summer. So we'll probably have to take a couple of trips back to Boca during the summer, and then we'll probably get a place late July, hopefully.
Yeah, Maddox, what are you doing for next year?
I'm still going to be living off campus the next two semesters, because I'm going to be graduating next spring, which is also very interesting to say out loud, because like now I'm starting to think like, wow, like about to be like one more year and then into the real world. But so I still have to like pay rent for my at least for my room in my house I'm living in right now. But yeah, so I'm gonna be still living in that house for the next year.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be weird going from like living on campus and like just on my own for 3 years to back with my parents. So you guys enjoy your last year here.
Like I said, like the commute can also be kind of difficult for like living off campus. Like I know like for me, because I really don't have a car, I have like a scooter, and luckily I found a place that's like 5 minutes off campus, so I don't deal with that. But others have to drive like 30 minutes, like almost like an hour out because of the rent around Boca is so expensive, which hopefully get more housing, and hopefully like the economy kind of like dwindles down a little bit with like the rent and real estate will be a little bit down, hopefully, for us college students, at least like in Boca. But it's difficult because like we're next to West Palm.
We talked about, not for next year, but in 2027, you know, those incoming freshmen and the people that are freshmen now, it'll be helpful since the new dorm will be built by then. But so kind of getting off our little like catch-up session. So I do want to just say a message for those of you that don't know. On Friday, a tragedy did occur in the Boca Raton community. Unfortunately, a small plane did crash off of Military and Glades Road, and unfortunately the 3 passengers did pass away. So I just want to say like the thoughts and prayers to the family that was impacted by the tragedy and just the whole community in general. You know, because it's always sad, and also it's always sad when events like this do happen. They had just taken off from the airport, and I guess that there was some issues with the plane prior to takeoff, and they kind of were flying in circles. But I did see someone like on social media talking about how the pilot really was a hero, because I don't know if he had control of the plane or not, but where they crashed, it allowed for like mass casualties didn't occur, because FAU is like half a mile away from where it happened. The Town City Mall was half a mile away as well, so it really could have been a lot worse. But I just hope that, you know, everyone that knows the family is doing okay. And also on that same day, there was the tragic helicopter crash that happened in the Hudson River in New York. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah. It was like, I think like 3 people were on there. It was like I think like a millionaire, his wife, and like their young son. I saw like a video on Twitter because there's like no like really hardly any censorship on the Twitter now. But seeing that, it was pretty horrific how like, it was like spinning and like it was like the video was from like far away, but still like just seeing it, it's like wow. Yeah,
you could tell that the blades of that helicopter were just not moving like at all. And I heard it was the family's like first day in New York, and unfortunately it was like one of just the helicopter tours of the city. So, you know, it's sad that in the same day 2 unfortunate events did occur. But kind of getting off of the sadness and getting into FAU men's basketball.
Which is also kind of sad to think about as well.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, this is kind of sad, especially for one of the players, but getting into men's basketball transfer updates. So Matas Vokatitis is officially transferring to Texas. I will just kind of go through the 3 people that were announced. So he's transferring to Texas. Caleb Glenn is actually going to be transferring to Michigan State. Woohoo! So I'll keep rooting for him for next season. And I think, well, we can kind of discuss this, but Trey Carroll is going to Xavier University. So the main thing with Vokatitis that kind of, I saw circulation online, but it really raises the question, like, what is this going to mean for mid-major schools? Because FAU's coaching staff developed him incredibly this entire season. The way that we saw him playing in their first couple of games, like against UCF, and then compared to their last games, he was a whole different player. And he clearly really in his first year got used to the American style, or not American, but like the collegiate style of basketball compared to the European style. And they developed him so well, and then he basically was just like, okay, bye. So what do you guys think that this is going to mean for not only for FAU and for their coaching staff, but for the future of kind of mid-major schools?
Well, yeah, I think just to talk about the mid-major schools thing for a second. Me and Maddox, I think last week, were talking about how in March Madness, right, certain like Cinderella stories probably wouldn't have happened, or maybe this was a couple weeks ago. Cinderella stories wouldn't happen because those guys, instead of being seniors and playing for that lower tier school, their sophomore and junior years, they're getting picked up by the bigger schools. So they don't have a chance to break out on that Cinderella story and then transfer. They're going to already transfer before they really have their big breakout. And then they're going to help Florida lead to a national championship, right? So, like that's going to probably be what the mid-major school is, right? The underlooked prospects out of high school that get developed, and they look good, and they take them, and then the bigger schools take them and develop them, and get players that are proven already to what you're doing, what your role is, how to play collegiate basketball at a high level. So I can really see a slight decrease in Cinderella stories for March Madness. I still think there are going to be a lot more than what happened this last March Madness run. Is just with the numbers, that's what's going to happen, right? And basketball is so just one game can decide, yes, maybe 1 out of 10 times Colgate will beat LSU, but that one time it was when Colgate won, right?
Yeah.
The other 9 times LSU might have won. But yeah, that's always going to happen. Basketball games are just always unpredictable like that. But basically mid-majors are going to be developmental hubs for the bigger schools, instead of they're going to stay 4 years at a smaller school. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, I feel like this is now looking to be the downfall for mid-majors, but I think just for this short period of time it will. I feel like college basketball is going to adapt, so we'll start seeing eventually maybe some limitations on the transfer portal and how many times a player can transfer and when they can transfer. Maybe if you're a freshman coming into this program, you gotta stay with this program for at least 2 years before going to this other school. Maybe some limitations on that, but I do think we're going to start seeing in the next couple of years maybe some more deeper mid-major runs in the postseason, maybe some more Cinderella stories. But this was more of an outlier because the NIL was still very new. The transfer portal thing was so crazy recently. So having very few mid-majors making it past the second round is unorthodox in a way of how we were so used to March Madness. And I do still believe that FAU's Final Four run was genuinely the last time I ever saw a true mid-major run, because now you're getting guys like Vokati's, international players coming to college play, figuring out and learning how to play in the college level because at different levels, and then from there going from a mid-major and jumping into an SEC school, which we were mentioning last week, Morgan, and I was saying it kind of makes a little bit of sense because you want to play a bigger, powerful, a better basketball. And I also felt because he was at North Tech, he was at when the AAC tournament was in North Tech, in Fort Worth, Texas. He kind of seemed he kind of liked Texas a little bit more, so he wanted to transfer there. But I wasn't too surprised by Vokati. I really wasn't mad Vokati's leaving, nor really with any of the other players we're going to bring up who are also transferred over, just because. You have the opportunity to have a great year. You want to still go in pro, and unfortunately, FAU's they had the opportunity to really boost their program, but because of the NIL and the transfer portal, kind of diminished it a little bit. And it seems now FAU's becoming that school where it's coaches and big name and players have great resumes, and then transfer over to a new school. It's more of a place to build reps, build tape to them leave. Yeah,
it's going to be a cycle for mid-major schools. You're going to have let's take FAU for example, right? They're going to have their peak, right? They go to March Madness back to back, maybe if they're lucky 3 times in a row, and then they're going to have a downward, because the coach leaves for a bigger program, and all the other players that don't graduate or go to the NBA transfer, which is most of them are probably going to transfer anyways. And then you're going to have a few year, maybe even way longer than a few year, a stretch where for example, in the scenario, FAU is maybe slightly above average, slightly below average, mediocre, right? And then they're going to get their peak once again. It's going to be a cycle for big mid-major schools. And I'm a little bit worried about those. It's good that every conference gets an automatic seed, automatic bid into the playoffs, because it's going to be very interesting to see those lower we're mid-majors, but at the same time we're the American Athletic Conference, the best mid-major, quote unquote. Unless you count for basketball, I kind of count the Big East as a power conference because it has multiple powered schools. But yeah, so we're the biggest. So just imagine one in the ASUN, for example, right? The Atlantic Sun, or the A10, right? Those conferences are going to be a lot lower because obviously they don't have any big power schools we still have Memphis, which is still FAU, Memphis, and Tulane. They're going to be looked at favorably around the nation and around the media because we're already kind of big schools. We're just not as big as the other ones.
Yeah. you're right. It's definitely just going to become kind of like a cycle almost. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we've gotten to like literally just directly experience this with FAU going to the Final Four freshman year, and then now it's like a couple years later experiencing the aftermath of that almost. And I mean, obviously the decisions that the players that left last season, like Elijah Martin, who just won the national championship. I didn't get to say congrats to him, but congrats to him, and also Morgan, you were wrong. But we can see that these players, like, it's a smart strategy for them. So that's why, like you just said, I can't blame them for making this decision, because it's going to help them in the future, especially if they want to make it to the NBA, just because the chances that they're going to be able to build up their resume at a school like FAU isn't as likely as like going to UF or going to Texas, or like Caleb Glenn, who's going to Michigan State, which he is actually the first transfer edition that MSU has taken in for this season, which losing him really is going to be a struggle for the team, just because he was leading scorer. Even coming off the bench, he averaged like 12.6 points per game, and he had 4.8 rebounds, excuse me. So losing him is really, I feel like, going to be hard for the team. Him and Matas especially, just because of Matas' size and how they were able to finally, towards the end of the season, figure out how to utilize him in the paint, and you know, and Walker was able to just lob him up with dimes constantly.
But like, I think also, like, because the past, so looking at the stat sheet for the team right now, from last season, 3 out of the 4 top scorers for FAU all have entered the transfer portal and now found new homes. And so it's going to put a little bit of struggle now on John Jacobs, because again, first year head coach is trying to figure out like what your type of playing style is, particularly when your first time ever as a head coach, period. So him trying to figure out what his playing style is and trying to develop a team that will fit that playing style. And then not only that, but trying to see how they play against conference, go in conference play, how they play against opponents. And then the next year, like, okay, now I know what we need to bring in and what players we got to keep. And all the majority of the team right now, like, either graduate or left. Like, I think about 7 players have either transferred over to a new school or have already graduated. So there's a couple pieces they still have left. Like, surprisingly, Baba Miller's still with the team. So if he still stays for next year, they got to build around him. You got to build around like Murray. You got to look into guys like Langenfeld, Kochanis, Vanderpool, and Liam Dacko Green, which I heard from JD and Cameron when they were scouting their like kind of spring basketball game earlier in the year, earlier last year. They were saying like Liam Dacko looks very good. So like try and keep some of those young guys on your roster, and then try and build around that. And the transfer portal is still very much open, and FAU really hasn't made too much effort right now, but also because like the big name prospects are going to the big schools first, and then you got like it kind of diminishes probably the mid majors. Like, okay, now like a little bit like the breadcrumbs you guys are gonna have. So
there are a few visits that FAU is getting. USC transfer Isaiah, I'm guessing it's Elohim. He was a former 4-star recruit and barely played a little bit for USC, which honestly kind of sounds like a little bit of a Caleb Glenn thing, where like Caleb Glenn last year was in Louisville and played a little bit for Louisville, but obviously was kind of buried on that depth chart. And then he goes here, and then he's probably one of the better players. So that kind of sounds very familiar. Arkansas State transfer Darian Ford, who averaged 8 points per game. And then you have Eastern Michigan transfer Christian Henry, who averaged almost 15 points per game. And that's obviously like a lower player from like a lower tier, not as well known program, going to a higher program in FAU. And those are probably the biggest prospects that are on visits.
I heard like another like thing like French player. I forgot what school he went to, but like a French player as well. Like he's also kind of regarded as like one of the best like players left in the transfer portal, and he also like just visited FAU the other day as well.
Are you talking about the Iowa, the prospect from Iowa?
I think so. I don't remember what school he went to, but I know he was a French international transfer.
We're both looking this up right now.
Yeah.
Sado Traore?
I think that might be him. Yeah.
He has visits to Memphis, Alabama, including Memphis, Alabama, Washington State, Penn State, Seton Hall, West Virginia, FAU is on there. So that's a lot of big name schools. We'll see which one he goes to.
Yeah, but I heard like he also transferred, and I heard like he was like one of the, at least highly regarded as like one of the best players remaining in the portal. So that'd also be a pretty good steal for FAU to get. But also everybody not like too optimistic of them keeping him.
I wonder
more than a year.
When does this end? Like when does the transfer portal end? When does
I would imagine
people
it would like
actually
end
have
right
to-
before like the
That's
right
actually.
yeah, I imagine it would end right before like college basketball season at least like technically starts, or at least like a month prior to that.
Yeah,
because Jacobs had to build his staff like his roster like a month prior to like non-conference play.
Yeah.
It says Tuesday, April 22nd.
Oh wow.
Wait, for college basketball or just like overall portal?
To enter the portal and signal the intent to transfer.
Yeah.
So that's the last day for them.
So that's the last day
So-
for them to enter the portal.
So we got 8 days, a week and a day, to see if Baba Miller stays or not.
You know, that'd be really great if he does actually stay, and
Yeah.
especially like, I'm glad that Devin Vanderpool hasn't entered the portal either.
Like Jaquel Powell, he did,
He
and like
entered.
yeah, and like to me, like
It makes sense though because he was buried in the depth chart. Like
Yeah.
when is he actually going to get a chance to actually play?
That's true.
it
Yeah, I
makes
can
sense
agree with that as well. But
yeah.
also, it's like, well, you don't have much playing time in college basketball. I don't know how many like other mid-major schools are probably going to get. But I still like best of luck to him. But also, I do agree. Like, of course, understanding why he wanted to transfer because he was in the same recruiting class with Vanderpool. They're the only two freshmen that Dustin May signed in his last year at FAU. And then Vanderpool last season had like more playing time than he did in his freshman year. Actually, they both redshirted, but Vanderpool had more playing time, and Jaquel Powell didn't play at all. I don't know if it either was like an injury, they just like didn't like have him fit into their system, but he decided.
Yeah, they were actually roommates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That
what-
has to be pretty awkward though, being like, okay, you're getting like more playing time than I am, dude.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
last
they
year-
both have a good character about it,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, last year they were roommates, so I don't know if they were still roommates this year.
Oh,
Yeah, I just knew that because I lived on the same floor as them, and I know that they lived together.
oh, that's funny. Yeah, like Jaquel isn't even on FAU's like overall stats, like from the season.
Yeah, he didn't play.
So it makes sense too because it's like, yeah, he doesn't really have the stats to show to a school that he's trying to transfer to, but clearly they're like FAU is going to try to bring in recruits and they want them to become the starters.
Yeah, I think he already signed his letter of intent, or not. He didn't sign his letter of intent. He already said that he's going to go to a school called Ascension. It's a lower tier
What's that?
school.
Like like how do you?
Ascension, like as in the word ascension,
Oh,
but just
okay.
like a college or university, which is obviously I think a D2 school. And obviously, if he plays really well there, he'll get he'll transfer.
Wait, it might be Assumption, because I typed in Ascension, it says Assumption.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Assumption college basketball, the Greyhounds.
Yeah. So
What are
Yeah,
college names?
they're a D2 school. They lost in the Elite Eight in the men's Division II basketball tournament to Nova Southeastern. So
Okay,
Yeah.
so they're in the same level as Nova, which is where
Yeah.
one of the assistant coaches came from.
Yeah.
yeah, so if he does really well in that level, he can, of course, in a year or two, transfer back up to the
he's
D1.
gonna be, I think, a redshirt junior, I think, or he's like a redshirt sophomore now.
He still has 4 years eligibility.
4 years eligibility, so he has a lot more time still. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but Vanderpool, like, we got to kind of see a little bit of his spark
He looked, he looked
towards
good.
the last couple of games in the season, and he looked really good. So that's
Especially
why,
the last couple, like the last
Yeah,
few
the last-
games, he looked really good.
Well,
I think he was always good defensively.
yeah,
Like he always had
but
like that hustle.
his offensive momentum,
Yeah, it
it was
got
like
better.
we never really had seen that from him before. And that was something that Jacobs unfortunately had emphasized towards one of their last couple of games in the press conference. He's like, yeah, these two freshmen, Devin Vanderpool and Matas Fokatitis, they're playing excellent in their last games. We want to develop them and keep them for next season. So, yeah, we'll have to see, like, who ends up entering in the last 8 days. But, you know, possibly kind of for FAU fans, the biggest news, just because he's been here for a long time, Trey Carroll has officially announced that he is going to be signing with Xavier University in the Big East Conference. So, I mean, I know we kind of had talked about, like, a couple of weeks ago who we thought would enter the portal. And I gotta say, Trey is the most surprising for me just because he has one more year of eligibility and he really did monumental this season with FAU. So I'm curious, like, what really came behind, like, his decision.
Like, I honestly thought he was going to go to Miami because that was one of his offers. And I thought, like, okay, like, they lost a lot of players in the transfer portal. is local, and his wife, I believe, is still like a police officer for FAU PD. So I thought like, okay, like them like living within proximity will be good. I thought like Miami will be a good fit for him. But I think Xavier, too. I mean, like that's like a Big East that like type of level playing style. They just made to the first round of 64 in the NCAA tournament. So I feel like a school like that would be good for Vanderpool. Not Vanderpool. Trey Carroll, and his last year, I think he'll probably have a good last year. He's obviously going to be a starter because he's going to be a senior, and he transferred over there. So
yeah, Xavier might not be as like sexy as a name as like other places, but Xavier is a program that does consistently put out basketball NBA level talent. Like right now, Najee Marshall and Colby Jones are the NBA. Especially Najee Marshall's been really impressive, and they also have other guys who go to the NBA and have like pretty decently long careers. So yeah. This is obviously a move. Of course, the Big East is one of the more popular basketball conferences in college, and they put out NBA talent. So if Trey Carroll and Xavier can do something special over there in the Big East, and then maybe in March Madness if they make it, then Trey Carroll's definitely going to get some eyes on him from NBA scouts.
Yeah, so, I guess we'll have to just see how next season plays out for them, and I'll be looking forward to seeing, like, kind of who enter, especially if Baba Miller enters into the portal.
if he does, I think that'd be really low blow and a huge blow for FAU, particularly because now it'd be like your 4 out of your 4 top starters. Last year have all like entered the portal, and it's like that's like a foundational piece of like, at least like a couple of your top starters, scoring guys on your team to build around. So
And the other one graduated.
Leave, it's like,
and the other one graduated. The other starter graduated.
yeah.
So
then having then be challenging in second year for Jacobs, and now kind of figuring out how to play against the AAC as well as like what type of style of basketball he wants to play. Now trying to build a roster in time again for a second straight year, almost like rebuilding the entire roster, particularly a starting lineup, to then get ready for the next season. So
yeah, but we can go ahead and get off of our men's basketball segment. Speaking of like next season, so FAU football team, we just kind of got a little sneak peek of what to expect with the team. They just had their spring game on Friday. Basically how it worked was the first 3 quarters, the team just did like drills that the coaches had created for them, and then in the 4th quarter was when they started like counting the score. And the defense had won over the offense. It was a final score of
22-9, I believe.
Yeah.
And I found that kind of like ironic though, the fact that like Zach Kidley, who's like an offensive-minded head coach, and it was like offense versus defense, and the defense defeated his offense because he's also the offensive coordinator. But I think it's also kind of like just shows like how good the defense is, because they did like a red zone lockout. So like they just like back and forth, whoever gets a 18 first. And it was like within the 20-yard line. So just to show how much can that offense handle under pressure going against the defense, as well as like how much pressure can the defense inflict on the opposing team's offense. And I mean, the defense looked very good. The offense looked good as well, but the defense I think really stood out in that game. I mean, Cameron Goggins had a total of 7 tackles. Kyle Boylston had the game-sealing interception. That for turnovers is additional 6 points for the defense. So the defense was already up 16-9, and with that interception, that was a turnover that ended the game. So it was really great to see that from him, because he also looked really good in that red zone lockout. But I felt like there were really good. There were a lot of standout guys on the defense as well as the offense. So still a lot more questions that need to be answered, trying to fill in some holes. And the transfer portal, I think for college football, reopens. I think it just reopened or something. So like typically that happens like after like the spring game, like if players still want to like leave and other teams want to try to bring in players, they still can in another like short period of time.
Yeah. So
were you at the game covering it?
Yes, Morgan and I were both calling the game as well. Actually.
Yeah, we were both calling the game. It was very fun, and well, it was my first time calling a game. He's called many games before. Yeah. Very interesting. I definitely want to get more experience. Because there were some great moments that me and Maddox had, but there were also some moments where we were like, oh yeah, we could probably tweak this here and there, just for like the owl radio.
Yeah, it's always weird though for calling spring game, because this is my second time ever calling spring game. My first time was last year, and it just gets weird because you're not really used to the format. So like I'm kind of used to calling like games like a typical like format, like one team and then the other team, and also a lot of the players their jerseys are like rolled up, so you really can't see which numbers were who.
Exactly.
So that was kind of interesting. I know last year they said the time was like a 6 o'clock, and they were starting to do like a little drill. So I thought, okay, that's when the game started. They were like, oh no, like another like 45 minutes, the game's actually going to start. I'm like, oh, okay. So I kept calling like them doing all their drills. So I learned from that lesson, like don't talk about that. But
I definitely would say though that the defense probably looked a tad bit better because obviously in the third quarter, that was the quarter that didn't really matter. Since there were 3 quarters where we just kind of did a scoreless scrimmage.
Yeah.
And in the third quarter, it was kind of the backups. But in the first 2 quarters, like Veltkamp, which is going to presumably our starter next season, wasn't always the quarterback on every single drive.
Yeah, you can't switch it with
exactly.
Valentino and a Weissman, but
so I'm not surprised that the defense looked better because obviously, like you have younger guys and inexperienced guys playing on offense against like a pretty decent defense that's pretty deep, that looks to be deep, as we saw from the spring game. They're probably going to struggle a little bit. Same thing with like the fourth quarter in the red zone, like
lockout. Yeah, because I thought when I was looking at that as well, I thought like, it seemed like I don't know if there are problems with the quarterbacks or just the receivers, but
offensive line,
or maybe that, but like a couple of the quarterbacks behind center, they were throwing passes to all their different receivers, and a lot of them were dropping passes. A couple were in front of them, a couple were behind them. So trying to solve that problem for sure, because they're going to be going against Maryland on the road at the start of the season against August 30th. So having to prepare for a Big Ten school, it's up plenty of time, but I feel like there's a lot of stuff they saw during the spring game, which that's the whole point of spring game, to see what you guys did in practice, how that looked in front of the fans, the boosters, which were a lot of fans at the stadium, looking in front of the fans, the boosters, the alumni, and also in front of the coach and seeing like, okay, now in like almost like a game, game simulation, how did you guys look in those situations? And I mean, struggling a little bit receiver-wise, but overall I feel like the Veltkamp and Messer connection was good. I mean, Messer led the receivers 4 receptions for 101 yards, had 2 touchdowns, and especially in the beginning of the game where they didn't count score, I think on their opening drive, Veltkamp found Messer in like a slam route across the middle in front of the logo, and then he went all the way down to the end zone for like a 60-plus yard touchdown run. So that connection kind of like, I was like a unique connection, kind of getting a little like a sneak peek to what they will have, what they might offer this upcoming season. And again, looking at some of the defensive players like Goggins, Lawrence Johnson, Antonio Smith also kind of surprised me because I really didn't see him, because I projected like players I thought might go be the starting lineups before the spring game. And afterwards, I made a couple of substitutions. One of them was Antonio Smith because he had 2 tackles. 2 were, I believe, both were assisted. But he also had the first interception of the game as well, like a tipped pass that he caught. And he looked good as well, so I feel like he could be possibly a starter. One person I was surprised, though, was Tyler Stolsky, because he only had like 1 tackle, but he was a transfer coming in from Minnesota. And he looked really good at Minnesota, so I also figured for him, because the linebacker situation.
He did also
force a fumble?
Yeah, he did also have that forced fumble on,
Yeah.
I think it was Xavier Terrell. So he did have that forced fumble on Xavier Terrell. And just to get it kind of away from the starters, actually, I'm not going to lie, the freshman, Jordan Magwood, he kind of looked like the second best quarterback out there on the spring, specifically the spring football game.
He was 7 for 13 for 73 yards. He did throw 1 interception, but his longest pass was 31 yards. But I feel like there's going to be a lot more questions that still need to be answered. Of course, the first one's like, who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver? Like, of course, it's Messer, but got guys like Caleb Combs and Jabari Smith both looked both
really
the
good
top receivers also for FAU, but also I feel like the most important one is trying to figure out who will be your top linebackers, because Jackson Ambush is going to the NFL draft, and Jared Gerald's the top 2 linebackers for FAU. Gerald's also, I think, just graduated. I don't know if he's going in the draft, but he did graduate. So losing your top 2 linebackers and trying to figure out who's going to step up in the linebacker position. Could it be Charquez Lee? Could it be Tyler Stolsky, which I kind of predict he might be, also because I think he's like a senior or like redshirt junior, so he's very experienced. So he didn't come to FAU just to like sit on the bench. He's probably going to be a starter. So.
Yeah. I mean, the spring game's definitely more just like an opportunity kind of for the fans to get a little bit excited for the upcoming season, as well as, like you pointed out, for the coaches to kind of realize. But I think that Veltkamp and that Smith-Messon, like, they came from the same university together. their offensive connection's already going to be very strong. So
particularly with Kidley, because I was looking at his staff, like Kidley, I came from Texas Tech. He was also at Western Kentucky, so he knows the area well, or knows that program well.
He recruited Veldkamp initially.
He also recruited Veldkamp. He also produced Bailey Zappi and Patrick Mahomes. But also on his coaches, have a lot of the coaches were with Kidley when he was back at Texas Tech first, a couple of stints, and also his time at Western Kentucky. So he also brought guys that he also knows well, that knows this type of playing style, which is more like an air raid offense, a lot more passing, mix of passing and running, but a lot more passing. We saw a couple of drives, Morgan, where and there was one drive that ended up being like a turnover very late, but during that drive, it looked very good. It had good runs, good passes. I mean, it looked like a very strong offense that we haven't really seen last year, because last year, like, the receiving room wasn't that strong, but the running back room was very strong, being led by CJ Campbell.
Yeah, very strong.
So now having to figure out, they were just using more of like run play that season, which was very predictable, and that kind of stopped their offense. So now they're trying to see how this offense this year under this head coach is going to step up, because the defense I still see is very solid for FAU, but then we got to see like how that receiving room in particular is going to look this season.
I mean, based off like all of their accolades that the head coach is bringing in, and as well as the connection that the two already have together, just based off of that, it's kind of easy to assume that we can expect to have a better quality offense than we saw last season. But once again, they're starting out the season, their first game against a Big Ten team, which actually Maryland is FAU's newest president, Adam Hasner's alma mater. So I heard that he's apparently going to be in attendance for that game, and he's excited for it.
I mean, they also have they also have a kind of tough, a little bit of a difficult schedule, because their first conference game is going to be, I'm really hoping to call this game September 27th against Memphis. And Memphis, I think, is reigning, no, they aren't reigning conference champions, but they, I believe, lost to Western Kentucky in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I saw that game, and they looked very good that season, so Memphis is a very good team. South Florida on the road, October 18th. Could be a give or take. Navy the next week, also on the road. I mean, Navy also looked good last year. I feel like that was kind of an outlier for like academy schools. We'll see how Navy looks this season. Against Tulane, also on the road on November 15th, their last road game of the season. Also pretty tricky. Then they got Connecticut, their second to last home game on the 22nd. And I feel like that's more of like a revenge game, because a lot of the guys on the team remembers last year where they were on the road and they lost 48-14 to UConn, which it seemed like FAU should have won that game on paper. They didn't. So they're going to have a little bit of revenge, particularly when Connecticut comes to town. So I could see a couple of games where it could not go their way. Others, I think, kind of given, like Florida A&M, their first home game in a non-conference, I feel like they will win that game. And then on the road to FIU in the Shula Bowl the next week, I feel like that's also going to be kind of a given. Probably same goes for Rice, but we'll see how this offense looks at the start of the season. Well,
you two have fun covering FAU football next season. But yeah, so going into FAU women's tennis team. I know we've never talked about tennis before on the show, but I have to talk about it. They just finished their season 15-0. They finished on Saturday, and they are now FAU's only team in the history of the program to finish their regular season completely undefeated. So a little round of applause to them. I think that they deserve that. I mean, finishing the regular season 15-0. I don't know anything about tennis, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I'm looking
I have not been keeping, I don't even like
I was looking at their stats right now, and got Panna Bartha, who led in the singles for the team, 11-4 record, won her last game. And then you got Lexi Silna, and she won her last 12 games. And they're out of this about, I think, 7 or 8 players in the singles for the women's tennis. 2 of them are on a losing streak. The rest are on a winning streak. So they have a very good doubles division. And then for singles, and then for doubles, kind of like even, but I think just looking at how they are singles-wise, I mean, Panna Bartha looked good this season, 11-4 record. Lexi Silna undefeated this year, winning all 12 of her matches. Malwina Rowinska, 14-4. So I mean, there's a lot of good players on that tennis team.
Well,
so that kind
and
of shows why they're undefeated.
yeah, and looking at like their win, the score differentials, I mean, the closest that the team got was like 4-2. Like they had a 7-0 win against North Florida. They had a 6-1 win against Delaware. They beat UCF 4-2. They beat Boston University 6-1. So it's really like a remarkable women's tennis team. So just don't really have much to say about that. Just wanted to say congrats to them.
But I think also like a shout out to, I'm trying to find the coach, Ricardo Gonzalez. Also shout out to him, building a really good team this year. I mean, again, also shout out to Panna Bartha and Malwina Rowinska, Lexi Silna as well. Like they also have very good season for them. And again, just winning every single match and dominating fashion. So props to the women's tennis team.
Exactly.
It's really great that we got to see two kind of record-breaking seasons. Of course, one of them was a Division II team, and the hockey team, the first national championship ever won by FAU. And then, of course, now the first FAU team in history to finish the regular season undefeated. So it's kind of really cool to see two like record-breaking seasons happen in the same season.
Yeah.
This year.
Exactly, and especially coming from, I mean, one was the club, and then one was, I mean, a tennis team that I don't really think a lot of people, most people kind of keep up with like football and basketball.
Yeah, but also that weekend was also.
That weekend had a lot of stuff going
that
on.
That was a
Yeah.
crazy weekend, particularly on Friday as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually going to get into kind of some more happenings that happened. That doesn't make sense. Some other things that happened on Saturday. So FAU's number 14 beach volleyball team also finished their only home tournament this season on Saturday. This whole season they only have one at-home tournament, and it's titled the Capri Classic, which is dedicated to their former head coach, who unfortunately in 2022 had passed away from cancer. She had been coaching the team since 2014, and the current head coach, Steve Gurtowski, is like her husband. So he emphasized how special it is that he's able to recognize like his late wife in this manner, and that I guess they even do like a special award to one player that kind of demonstrates qualities that Capri had as in her playing style. So in the tournament, they finished second overall. They hosted the University of Texas at El Pastor. They had Florida Gulf Coast, and then they also had USF. And I was really excited because it was like I was able to cover the tournament, and it was like crazy to cover it. So basically, they had a court expansion that just happened this fall. That they got. It was from a $5 million donation back in 2022 when the Haggerty family had donated that, which, do you remember? That was my first article I ever did.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wait, Haggerty family, that sounds so familiar because, that was back when Maddox was a sports editor. That was when I had started. And I was like, I was like, oh, I want an article.
Yeah,
and he's like, look, a family donated.
Wasn't that like during the summer, I think?
That was during the fall.
Oh, the fall, okay.
Yeah. They finished second overall. But anyway, the court expansion, they only had 3 prior, and now they had 5. So there was literally, for the championship match, there was 5 games going on at once, which beach volleyball, it was hard to like watch 5 different games at the same time. And they play in pairs, so everything is based off like how the pairs do. And it's played to 21, 21, and then 15 if they need to go to a third set.
Yeah. And also looking at like on their stats this season, and for the pairs, as you were saying, like Ashley Adams and Marketa, I'm gonna butcher this so bad, but Zvozalova, Adams, and I'm gonna call her. I'm just gonna say her first name. So Adams and Marketa both were 16-4 this season as a pair. They won their last. They're on one game of win streak. But then got Kendall McNary and Kay McLaughlin, second best record with 11-9. So like there are a couple of pairs that look very good. But Ashley Adams and Marketa Zvozalova both were the best of this season. So I mean, again, like props to the volleyball team as well. I mean, number 15 in the nation, or number 14, and having also a terrific season, winning all those winning that tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, they also recognize like there are 5 seniors that will be graduating: McLaurin, Kelsey Roberts, Sydney Schroeder. So I'm gonna butcher that too. Marquetta, and then Hansovakovia.
Wait, were you looking at?
The
Oh yeah, Julie Hanzovikova. Yeah, if you're watching this, we're so sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't do
those
didn't do
two
your name
players,
justice. Sorry.
But what Coach had said that was unique about those 5 graduating seniors is they actually played together all 4 years. So, I mean, as we're seeing with the transfer portal, Grotowski was emphasizing how it's kind of rare nowadays with the scenery in college athletics for 5 players to stick together throughout the whole time, especially like the beach volleyball team isn't like the roster isn't that large. It's not like a football team.
Yeah. But like with that small roster, like with 5 of those seniors that are all graduating, all of them were together all those 4 years, so building that camaraderie. And like for tennis, is like can be individual. For beach volleyball, it could be individual. Particularly for this, is more of like a pair sport. So trying to build that connection with your teammate is more interpersonal than like other possibly other sports. Can have players coming in and out of the transfer portal or leaving, but for like beach volleyball, where it's like both players staying together for all 4 years, building that camaraderie, building that connection, and kind of knowing what the other one's thinking can really help them win games, and it has proven to show.
I mean, it was special too. So Julie and Marquetta, both of them, they're the players that we can't really figure out how to say their last names. So sorry about that. But they're finishing off their senior year, and they came over together from the Czech Republic. So it's extra special for them just because they came from the same country.
Yeah, same with Alexis Silna for the tennis team as well. So also like kind of like a Czech Republic connection there.
Yeah,
so guys
exactly.
could probably do some more recruiting over there.
Yeah,
it seems like.
Well, that's what it's unique to see, like all of these international players just coming to FAU.
And
I mean, we just saw it with Matas and Montas.
Yeah.
Like they both basically have the same name, and they just came from Lithuania for the men's basketball team. So
but also like both coming to the same school, coming to the same state, and both coming probably to America for the first time. So both having the same experiences of trying to like learn from one another, learning the country, learning how to speak the language, as well as like, learning how to play under your coach and with your teammates as well.
Yeah, and I think that it definitely helps, because I had done an article a while back about the international recruiting process at FAU, and the coaches are emphasizing how they can kind of tell it helps the players when they have another teammate that understands like their background and kind of the struggles, because it's a struggle to go from like transitioning to college life and then transitioning from like living in a completely different country and then coming to a college in the United States and then having to play a sport. I just can't even kind of fathom like how difficult that must have to be.
I remember watching a video on YouTube from the Big Ten talking about Matas Bokataitis. Not Matas. Vlad Golden, I meant to say. So Vlad Golden, him out of Michigan, and it was like kind of talking about like him like meeting his parents for the first time, but also saying how like Dusty May kind of brought in a coach also from like Russia. So Golden connected with someone, both going to like a new environment in Michigan, going to Michigan, but also just like again learning. Go to a new environment, away from home, having someone that you connect with that speaks your language makes you feel very comfortable in the place you're not used to, but also just kind of understanding your struggles, understanding your background, where you're coming from as well.
Exactly. And then, so kind of getting off the beach volleyball and tennis topics, so just a little update on how our softball and baseball teams are doing. So FAU's softball team is currently ranked number 22. They're 35-9 and then 14-4 in the AAC. They, unfortunately for them, had just lost the series 2-1 to North Texas, who North Texas is 3rd in the conference, and FAU still reigns at number 1 in the conference. But it was kind of interesting. So in their like series with North Texas won the first game 0-4 on April 11th. And then on Saturday, which was when, like, I guess all FAU sports are happening on Saturday, FAU also lost 1-9 in 5 innings. But then on Sunday, they beat North Texas 8-0 in 5 innings. So I guess they really came back on the last day and wanted their kind of vengeance over the Eagles. So they're still doing, like, really great this season.
Yeah, it's just like this series is a little hiccup, but overall they should bounce back and Really, honestly, it's just a little hiccup. They should bounce back and continue to win more games than lose until we hit the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, they only have they only have 3 more
Series
series left until the American Athletic Conference tournament on May 7th. So their season, I feel like we were just talking about when it started, and now it's like essentially over.
Yeah, but I think also like these past 2 series, both home games against South Florida and then North Texas. Last series, South Florida was second in the conference, and FAU won that 2-1 the first game, and they also by mercy rule 8-0.
Yeah.
But then against North Texas, who then moved up to being the 2nd seed against FAU, so back-to-back matchups against a second team in the conference, which also kind of like boosts up or can affect how your record is and how well your program is. Because I'm pretty sure they also still do like at-large bids and like just look at your like non-conference, how well you play against tough schools. And for like North Texas second, and the first 2 games, the game was far out of reach for them, but then they switched it around in the last game, winning 8-0. Also in the mercy rule, so the past 2 games were won by mercy rule, and FAU looked a lot better than they did the other game, because I was covering that Saturday game, and that game went by me quick because I was operating camera, so like really focused on the image. But then I didn't notice like, oh, the game ended in mercy rule, so I didn't notice the game ended in the 5th inning. But like, so I don't know exactly who the person is, but so for North Texas's pitcher Savage, she was the only pitcher for North Texas, and she only struck out 2 batters. While for FAU in that game on Saturday, they had 4 pitchers, and all of them combined for 5 strikeouts. So having the first pitcher, Gabby Sacco, allowing 4 hits and 4 runs and committing 4 errors to start the game off, also kind of struggling with the bullpen. So having one pitcher for North Texas leading the entire game, granted it was within 5 innings, but the entire game only striking out 2 people, while 4 pitchers for FAU struck out and 5 batters in total. But then in the last game, FAU's offense just clicked, and they didn't start scoring until the 2nd inning. They got a run. Then the 3rd inning got another run. 5th inning they got in the 5th inning they went all out, and they got 6 total runs. And having someone like Jesse Mora and Yanni Guzman both led with 2 runs for FAU, and having 4 batters with 4 RBIs. And Courtney is also really good this season, 18-2. All 5 innings, struck out 4 batters, allowing 3 hits. She also looked very good. And also, I think just a shout out to Courtney this season as well, because in her first season transferring from Queens, has a 1.40 ERA, and pitched 94.2 innings, and striking out 100 batters. So she also looking very strong this season, her first year. So also a big standout for Courtney. So she's also a big catalyst in that Owls bullpen.
Yeah, that's really impressive. 100 batters for the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the FAU baseball team also just lost their series 2-1, but they were playing Memphis. The scores were, they also played this weekend. It was Friday through Sunday. They won the first game 2-1, and then lost 7-8, and then lost 4-5. So their matchups were a little bit closer compared to the softball team. And they're kind of sitting at, right now, middle of the AAC. They're 24-11 overall, and then 6-6 in the AAC, and they still have quite a bit of games left where they have the opportunity to bump up their standings a little bit so they can get a better seed in the conference tournament, because their season doesn't end until May 17th, which is a lot later than the softball team, and that's even when school is officially over. But their next game is going to be at Miami, and the last time that they played Miami, they did lose 5-6. So they can kind of head into that game with a little bit of vengeance, I think. I don't know. Have you covered any baseball games recently?
Yes, I also covered that Sunday game, that series ending, the series finale against Memphis, and I was covering the game with my roommate, and he was covering the Saturday game. And the Saturday game, Jake Dewar, the TCU junior transfer for FAU in his first year, standout player, leading the team with 4.28 ERA, batting average, having 59 hits, 32 runs, 551 slugging percentage, 497 on base percentage, means he's got on base about 49% of the time. having 2 home runs, 27 RBIs. He got ankle injury and is out for the season, so now losing one of your top guys offensively, having to try to fill in that void for him. And at the start of the game, it got away with from FAU real quick. They gave up 1 run. They gave up actually 4 runs in the first inning, and having Memphis go through the first 8 out of their 9 batting order, and then giving 1 more run in the 5th, and then stopping them and preventing Memphis from getting on base 22 times in a row before getting within reach, but then couldn't get over the hurdle and lost the game 5-4. But I mean, they looked like they had an opportunity. They had opportunities a couple of times, didn't go their way, but they made that comeback, and their defense just was really good, particularly with the pitching, particularly from James Littman, who struggled in the first couple of innings, but then looked great. And then bringing in Ryan Buckler, Carter Holojez, and MJ Bollinger as the closer for FAU.
Yeah. But I guess we only have a couple of minutes left, so we can kind of get off our FAU segment and just give a little update on what to expect with the NBA postseason as it is starting tomorrow. So on the West region, the Sacramento Kings and then the
Dallas Mavericks.
Dallas, yeah, I was like, that's the Mavericks are going to be playing each other on the West, and then the Warriors and the Grizzlies will be playing each other for both the 10 through 8 seed, and then whoever wins those games will play each other, and then the number 1 seed is Oklahoma, number 3 is the Los Angeles Lakers, 2 is the Rockets, 4 is Denver Nuggets, 5, I can't, this visual's
so 5 is the
Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay,
Yes.
and then 6
The Minnesota
is
Timberwolves.
my asthma's acting up. Do you guys want it?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
it. So how the play-in works is that the 9th and the 10th seed, and as well as the 7th and 8th seed, will play against each other. If the 7th and 8th seed winner will be the 7th seed automatically, and they'll face the Rockets. So whoever wins against the Warriors or the Memphis Grizzlies, they'll play the Rockets. And then the loser will face the winner of the 9th and 10th seed, which will be the Kings versus the Mavericks. So whoever wins again in that game, so let's say the Kings win and they face the Grizzlies, right? Whoever wins that game, the winner of the 9-10 matchup and the loser of the 7-8 matchup, whoever wins that game will be the 8 seed facing the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's the exact same thing on the East, with the 9 seed being the Bulls, 10th seed being the Miami Heat, and the 7th seed being the Magic, the 8th seed being the Celtics. Or my bad, the Hawks.
Yeah.
Right. The first seed's the Cavaliers, so they face whoever the 8th seed's going to be, and then the 2nd seed's the Celtics, and they face the Magic or the Hawks. 3rd seed's the Knicks. 4th seed's the Pacers. 5th seed is the Milwaukee Bucks. 6th seed is the Detroit Pistons. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the postseason goes. I'll just say this real quick. I think out of the East side, it's going to be either the Celtics or the Cavaliers. I'm probably leaning towards the Celtics because the Celtics probably have a better defense.
Yeah.
Although the Cavaliers have been better offensively statistically this season, I don't know if they're better than the Celtics offensively in actuality. And then you go to the Western Conference side, it's kind of just a coin flip, in all honesty. I guess the true contenders in my eyes are probably the Lakers, Thunder. I don't know. The biggest problem with the West is that you have teams like the Denver Nuggets who just lost their head coach Malone. They fired him. It was like a weird, after 10 years, I guess they just wanted to move on. Although there's some controversy with that. So I don't even know who's coming out of the West. Everybody's besides the Thunder, everyone's within a couple of games of each other. So I can't really say if there are any favorites out in the West besides maybe the Thunder. But I can even see the Thunder losing to just if the Lakers get hot, if the Clippers get hot, if the Timberwolves get hot. So if, the West is kind of just a coin flip.
Maddox, who do you think?
Well, I'll be kind of quick with this just for the sake of time. So I do think, of course, no bias, but I do think the Celtics, who I'm a fan of, I feel like they will probably get past the Cavaliers, even though I still feel like it'll be a coin flip. Because I feel like whoever wins in that play-in tournament, it's not going to really matter because the Cavs and the Celtics will be playing whoever are the 7th and 8th seed, and I mean they're going to get away with that victory. I feel like the West, as you said, Morgan, is very stacked. I mean, the Thunder are, I think, about over 10. I think probably about their records, I think 68. So about 16 games over the Houston Rockets and everyone else.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Thunder are huge favorites. I could see the Thunder playing like the Celtics. But also the Lakers, they got Luka, they got LeBron. The Timberwolves also look pretty good with Anthony Edwards, but I mean, the Timberwolves are 6 seed playing the Lakers at the 3. If like the Lakers will get past that. The Nuggets against the Clippers. I mean, the Nuggets, you have no idea like who, what's going to happen with them, just because they just fired their head coach. You got to see how that impacts them in the postseason. But I feel like the Clippers like also pretty good late in the season, so we could see like either like a Thunder Clippers, we could see like a Clippers Lakers, or like a Thunder or Lakers Western Conference matchup. But I feel like the finals would probably just be Lakers Celtics for the finals. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, I also feel like the Lakers are going to go to the finals this season. From the East side, it's cool that the Pistons are finally in, but I don't think that they're going to go far.
And we got the Knicks in the first round
because they're
matchup.
playing the Knicks for the first round matchup, and unfortunately, I do think that the Knicks are just going to overcome them. I think that it could easily be,
I think I'm feeling a little bit differently than y'all in the West. The Lakers, they have Luka Doncic, they have LeBron James, but their role players aren't as good as, like, for example, a team like the Thunder. And I think the Thunder still like has the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, Shea Gill's averaging like 32
SGA.
points a game, so like.
I think the Thunder are going to make out of the West, and it'll be Thunder versus Celtics.
Well, it looks like the Celtics are going to have a good chance.
All right, back-to-back champs.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see, but we can go ahead and wrap things up. I'm still getting over my sickness and my asthma's flaring up, so I'm going to go take my inhaler. But where can they find you guys?
They can find me on Instagram at MaddoxBlade04 and on Twitter at Maddox Greenberg.
And you can find me on Instagram at Megan_Bruinsma and Twitter Megan Bruinsma.
You can find me on all social media platforms, MJ_Larkins.
Okay, that's all for this week. See you guys for next week. It's our last show. Peace.
Peace.